to read for us today Chapter 1 of the book by Bill Neely, Over 1,000 Beatings, Spiritual Sanity, and the Rejection of Evil. Easter, by the way. It's 1:21. What? 3:38 p.m. Chapter 1. To care and feel for another's plight. To shun and await depression. To escape whirlwinds of torment. To avoid hidden shadows of despair. A blink in the unfolding of time. To try to reflect a spectrum of colorful imagining. A netherworld of orange and pink twilight within a bright waking dream. With only one spark to be. This is a morality tale, one of evil and of an attempted good to combat it. The rejection of evil is an accomplishment. Though outwardly nothing may happen, inwardly there is self-knowledge of what I am not. There is a feeling of being in a worthwhile way. At times when I was a child and a teenager, this was all that I had. As a young child, I sought and was given comfort by my mother. To me, my mother was a beautiful woman. When I was in the early grades at school, I would dream of marrying someone who looked just like her. My father was a stranger to me. He never spoke or played with me. He was only someone who was always in the background behind my mother. When I think of the feelings that I experienced back then, they were ones of high anxiety, fear, and uncertainty. In 1951, at the age of 4, the introduction or insertion of my father into my life happened. I had my little arms wrapped around my mother's leg for comfort. He spoke to her, but I felt intuitively, even though I was only 4, that the words were meant specifically for me to hear. I also felt that there was an unspoken agreement beforehand about this between my mother and father, because she accepted what he told her without protest or comment. He was short and to the point. You are not to allow him to touch you, nor are you to touch him. It was maybe a couple days later. It was right after lunch with my mother and father. In the afternoon, I went to kindergarten. I liked it. I did like it. I liked it. During class, we would finger paint or draw with crayons, and it was fun being around a lot of kids my age. I was standing in the dining room, getting ready to walk the 3 or 4 blocks to school. I can't remember what my father said to me, but he told me to do something. I hollered, no. Immediately, he came right over to me. He picked me up with both hands and held me high above his head, like I was a log parallel to the floor. With both his arms, he hurled me with force across the room, 10 to 12 feet. I remember the flying sensation, then bouncing off the floor and hitting the side of my head against the edge of one of the square wooden legs of the dining room table. I remember sitting up dazed. I felt a wetness stream down the side of my face, and I saw the liquid drop onto my shirt, and it was red. I was like the soldier who had just experienced shock and awe from an enemy combatant. I was petrified and paralyzed with fright. I was numb of feeling, without any kind of visible reaction to what my father had just done to me. Shortly thereafter, the spankings began. I was terrified of him when he would become enraged with me. With a sudden quickness, he would lunge for me. As he did so, I would hurl myself to the floor, screaming and crying, and flopping around on the floor like a fish out of water. He would reach down and grab me with one hand, yanking me to my feet. He would begin with rapid succession, hitting me on my backside. He would be cursing me, "Goddamn snot-nosed kid, you," over and over, being in a full-blown rage. Always acting like he was right on the edge of losing control. From the very first spanking, I acted intuitively the way I did, screaming, crying, flopping around on the floor, because I thought that was what he wanted. It was what would satisfy him and prevent him from either killing me or breaking the bones in my body. When as a child, as a miracle of being and of creation, I would play with my toys and experience a beginning of a dream world within, real and absent of rage and madness. I was 6 years old. I was in the backyard of a next-door neighbor with 2 of their young children, Sally and Irma. They had just gotten a puppy, a brown cocker spaniel. They were playing with it. They were smiling and laughing and having a super nice time, as was the puppy. Their dad and mom came outside and told them to get in their car so they could go grocery shopping. They left me alone with the puppy in their backyard. I was sitting on the ground with the puppy in front of me. A couple of minutes passed. The puppy was resting and moving. I looked at it. I wanted to start slapping it. I reached out and swung and smacked the puppy. I was stunned. The puppy looked at me in bafflement. I swung and slapped it again on its back. It let out a sorrowful cry and whine. There was a darkness of descent of lower thought, feeling, and being inside me. An ugly, unknown entity that wanted me to continue slapping the puppy. I felt helpless. I was powerless against this urge. There was a suddenness. A loud, empathic voice inside my head said, "Don't do to this puppy what is being done to you." I just sat there, jolted. Then I got up and left the puppy there in the backyard, and I walked home. Shortly thereafter, on a summer day, I was outside on the sidewalk with my younger brother, Jim, age 2 or 3. We had this little red wagon. I helped to put him in the wagon where he was sitting up in it. I began to pull him. Then suddenly, I became overwhelmed by a gushing flood of savage emotion. I stopped pulling the red wagon. I dropped the handle. I felt a volcanic rage about to explode in my mind. I wanted to start beating my brother senseless with my fists. Once again, I heard this loud, empathic voice inside my head. "Don't do it to him what is being done to you." Almost the same exact words I had heard when I was with the puppy. I looked at my younger brother, sitting there in the red wagon. He seemed content, waiting for me to continue pulling him. I turned my back to him, and I walked away. If there is an almighty creator of or within this universe, then what I heard was the voice of God. It was not mine, nor did it originate from my self-will. There was a distinct presence of a supernatural being separate from my self-will and consciousness. The rage and overpowering lust to beat both the puppy and my younger brother senseless vanished when I made the decision both times to walk away. I am thankful for the inner strength and restraint that were given to me on both occasions. I was 6 years old. I know what I experienced. It was, to be without doubt, the most lasting, defining, guiding event and happening in my relations with my younger brothers and others. On both occasions, I had been singled out by a presence of a living being that was beyond my comprehension. I became a believer. I became wary of anger as an intoxicant and incitement towards uncontrollable rage and madness. Whatever feeling or caring that I might have had towards someone, I didn't want to see it diminish to the point of being negated. The very best behavior on my part on both occasions was to do nothing. I had battled with the devil himself. The choice made both times was to give light to the life that was beginning within me. What I most vividly remember about the spankings, age 4 through 8, was the terror I felt during them. Most every single time my father acted out the role of a madman on the verge of going berserk, he would accuse me of misbehaving. When he would stand there glaring at me, he would begin cursing me until he was in a rage. "Goddamn kid, young snot nose," etc. Then he would grab me and start spanking me. I would be all the time screaming and crying. What carried me through those early years was the sacred unknown within me. I persevered because there was a beginning to the strength of the creation of my inner being. That was the decision, and then the choice of not to do evil, of not to do to others what was being done to me, and just what was being done to me. My soul was being pillaged and violated. The light, the joy of it was being dimmed. The spontaneity of feeling and being of inner creation within me was being cowed and crushed. From the very first spanking at the age of 4 until the very last time he assaulted me, I always behaved in the same way in front of him. What he did to me was nonstop. There was no let up. I was like one of Pavlov's dogs. He conditioned me to feel terror and to shame myself on his command. Whatever I would do, he would still attack me. I was like the mouse before the snake struck him and ate him, petrified, paralyzed, unable to move to save his life. I would hurl myself to the floor and flop around like I was a fish on land out of water, all the while screaming and crying, the shaming of myself in front of him even before he began hitting me. He would stand over me watching me for several seconds. Then he would bend down and hold me up with one arm and commence spanking me. When he finished, I would go to my bedroom and fall down onto my bed, weeping into my pillow. Gradually, after several minutes, I would calm down. My mind, my thoughts would take flight into fantasy. I'd imagine I was a cowboy like from the TV shows I used to watch, and I had a romantic relationship and friendship with a young heroine on the show. There was no touching, but my liking of her and my desire to be with her were more real than anything else on this planet. The same scenario went on and on throughout my childhood. For a short while as a child in my sleep, my favorite dream was when I was like Superman and I would fly. This dream carried over into my waking reality. I believed that if I believed wholeheartedly that I could really fly, then it could come to pass and be true. Practice was fantasizing flying as Superman could. In my backyard, there was a dirt stoop that I would sit upon with my legs hanging over, perhaps 2 feet above the ground. I would practice jumping off and flying. I was unsuccessful. If only I truly believed that I could, then it would come to be. So I believed and I trusted within me with all the might of my heart and being. I self-willed this to come true. One night, I had a dream that I was actually flying. It was more real than life itself. The following day, I took 2 of my younger brothers to the dirt stoop. I was 8, they were 6 and 4. All 3 of us sat on the stoop. I was in the middle. I had my arms tightly wrapped around the waist of each other of them. I had told them that I could perform magic and that I could fly. I was going to take them with me on a flight. I said, okay, get ready. On the count of 3, we will all jump off this stoop together. I readied myself. I tensed. 1, 2, 3. All 3 of us jumped simultaneously. The sudden, immediate landing on the ground was abrupt. I walked away from my 2 brothers without a word. I never again believed that I could fly. Present day. The experience of inner light will dispel the affliction of evil within. I seek an activity that I can put body and soul into, so as to be alive in the highest, most profound, most meaningful way possible. I choose a spiritual sanity from a brightening of inner light over either self-destruction or self-sabotage. I don't want to add to my scars and wounds with a self-inflicted misery. I want to travel upon a journey of today and to discover a hidden realm of inner enlightened being. I want to create a stream of consciousness within to use as a means of being. I can choose to try and travel alongside a path of inner truth and light. If I don't hate or act spitefully, I can be supportive and encouraging of others in their own inner efforts at spiritual being. My enemy is the lie of complacency, a feeling that tells me that I need not make any attempt at a willful and mental effort towards a spiritual sanity, to ignore a way of good cheer and warmth to share and to experience with my fellow man and woman or with an imagined unknown friend. I must not shutter windows of inner light, not lose or surrender my soul over to lower descents of thought and feeling or to intoxicants such as street drugs or alcohol. They create delusional realities along with inner demons in disguise. I need to make real what is within me by searching for inner truth. For the most part, the inner reality I experience is one of being alone. For most of my adult life, I fell short in making a go out of it. I know I have had several undiagnosed mental conditions throughout my adult life, possibly a form of schizophrenia and an identity disorder. How could I not have based upon either what I experienced or what was done to me as a child and a young adult? I can make a new beginning each day for myself by being open to the inspirations of others. It seems from what I have observed from so many people that their experience of an inner beauty of feeling is found in their inspiration to love each other. I admire them for that. Love is a word and a concept that is difficult for me to express as being existent inside of me. I have been apathetic towards its feeling, yet am I in error? What I can do and feel is care. For 2 years, from 2008 till 2010, I took care of 5 to 8 feral cats in my neighborhood. I would put out water bowls and bowls filled with dry cat food for them during the day. In the evening between 5 and 6 p.m., I would put out a dish for each cat that had wet salmon from cans of cat food. I could tell from a vulnerability and a softness from the reflection look in their eyes that they were very thankful for what was being put out for them. It meant a lot to me, too. I lived 3 years of my life as a homeless person, 1 year living out of my car in a small town, and if I added up the days, weeks, and months at a time that I lived on the streets of San Francisco, it would come to an additional 2 years. I know of all the pleasures available when being homeless, that having a tasty, filling meal to eat along with looking forward to it during the day can help uplift one's spirits. I was glad to be of service for the cats. I aspire to be sincere in my intent and in my thought throughout the day. I try to breathe in an inspiration of light and warmth into my spirit. I believe there is an inner courage involved with hoping for good life experiences for others, either of a slight acquaintance or not. I try to be honest and true towards an inner commitment of practicing a moral code of conduct to, at the very least, avoid and reject evil.